Hi, we're Doug and Mary, and we're taking the back roads and exploring the far corners of the continent.
We almost always find a great boondocking camp spot with a bit of looking in the milepost or eye-overlander. We left off last time north of Homer, Alaska, along the Cook Inlet on the west side of the Kenai Peninsula, winding our way back up towards Anchorage.
We're usually not in much of a rush since there's so much to see and explore. Lately, we've been averaging between about 50 and 100 miles per day.
Canada takes COVID very seriously. Before entering the country, we needed to download a phone app called ArriveCan. We also needed to upload proof of vaccination, proof of negative COVID test, a location where we could quarantine if we contracted COVID, and contact information if they wanted to conduct a random COVID test. Failure to comply could result in fines over $10,000.
Alaska, on the other hand, acted like it didn't exist. We later learned that Alaska had some of the highest COVID hospitalization rates and the lowest vaccination rates. We talked to several other travelers who caught COVID while in Alaska. Almost no one wore masks. Many venues were packed with people. We avoided these locations, yet wore masks inside buildings and buses, went to pubs and restaurants when they were nearly empty, or opted for seating outside. And yet we both still contracted COVID.
Doug's temperature started to climb while mine showed little effect so far. We quickly ran out of Tylenol and needed a place to hold up for a while until this passed. Somewhere that had bathrooms, water, and wasn't too far from additional supplies if we needed them. We had planned to cross the border back into Canada again the next day, but now that was off for a while. We found a great, almost hidden rest area outside Tok. After finding bare shelves in several locations, we found Tylenol and other supplies and headed for a spot at a section of old highway with informational displays explaining the previous bridge and the old bridge abutment, and a good place to spend a few days. We passed this very spot a few weeks back and pointed to it in a previous video. Little did we know then that this would be where we would ride out COVID.
Though we still had a couple of weeks of residual coughing and congestion, we eventually tested negative and were no longer infectious, so we headed for Canada once again, but not before we found a place to get a shower and do some laundry. I don't think the moose appreciate the scenery that they have. No. These mountains look like they were created yesterday.
There's your yellow wolf. Jack River.
the name of your book?
Last Bus to Wisdom.
Oh, like Wisdom, Montana.
Yep. By Ivan Doig.
Oh, okay. That's been on your list for a while.
Yep. I wonder, do they just normally get snow in August?
Well, I don't know. Maybe, well, it was cold. Cold enough up there, I guess, to snow.
It's like driving an obstacle course.
Anybody out there we recognize?
Right there he is.
Is he still there?
Yep, she
Stop, or did we?
Yep, she stopped. She's coming back up to the road. So get her on the... You see her? There she goes. She said, "You spoiled my morning walk."
Scared me.
But she was going to jump out in front of the car.
Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, well, I don't wanna jinx it, baby. Can't twist myself at the
We stumbled upon this roadside memorial on First Nations land with beautiful wood and rock carvings on display. Despite the rain, this was a spectacular hidden treasure.
baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, but I don't wanna jinx it, baby. Let's not get ahead of my time. Oh, but I don't wanna miss you, baby. So I stand up and speak just my mind. Oh.
The original Slims River Bridge was replaced in 2010, built by the Canadian Army in 1955, consisted of two steel through truss spans on reinforced concrete piers and abutments. Slims River, which flowed into Kluane Lake until recently, was named for a pack horse that drowned here during the 1903 gold rush.
You're channeling wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, 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 oh.
Your destination is on the right.
Since it had been raining most of the day, Haines Junction seemed like the perfect spot to stop for a burger, fries, and a chocolate malt.
This is Quill Creek, Quill, Q-U-I-L-L, Quill Creek, just south of Haines Junction. It's been raining all day long. That's why there's snow. Well, you can't really see the new snow on the tops of the mountains, but it's there. We saw a lot of it in some of the earlier mountain ranges. Pretty little creek, not too far off the highway.
We decided to take advantage of the lack of rain and explore Kluane Lake National Park and do some hiking, this time to a rock glacier and some amazing views.
We almost missed this guy near the top of Chilkat Pass and quickly turned around so we could watch him for a while. He went back and forth across the road digging for ground squirrels and eating berries and not paying any attention to us at all.
Where'd he go? It was a Grizz. He was real light. He was standing, you probably didn't see him. We rolled into Haines and the end of the road, checked out some of the local and historical attractions, the waterfront, and looked up old friends Stacy and Shannon, who we met several years ago when they took us around finding polar bears and taught about northern ecosystems. Watch to the end of this video and we'll tell more about that amazing trip and how to get more information.
The temperate rainforests around Haines are thick and lush and amazing to explore. And while the road to Chilkat State Park is not for everyone, the views of the bay and the glaciers just above the waterline were spectacular.
We decided to take the ferry to Skagway. It was less than an hour long, but it saved us 350 miles of driving, and ferries are always cool. Subway had some historic charm, many touristy shops, and we tried to time our visit to miss the huge crowds from giant cruise ships.
Boondocking camp spots were non-existent, but we found a municipal campground a few miles outside of town, where I used the opportunity to pull off the wheel and remove a tiny pebble that's been with us the last 1,000 miles and making a racket.
The next morning, we headed north, climbing the steep highway into Canada again, paralleling the old narrow-gauge White Pass and Yukon Railroad.
And there's the railroad over there. There's some sort of weird pipe coming down all the way from the top of the mountain. Another set of waterfalls over there. We're on the pass, White Pass, and we're past the U.S. Customs, and we're still several miles before the Canadian Customs. And it's sprinkling. It's kind of socked in. Typical weather for here, I guess. It's a 4,000 kilowatt hydroelectric project. So in the foreground is the old bridge, the one they built with the original highway in 1979. And then apparently later they came by and redid it, just filled in that whole gorge with concrete completely, and put the road on the other side. I like the old bridge better myself. This is on the Canadian side of White Pass. Way above, well, right at tree line here. Real rocky mountaintop. Look at these trees. Not sure which we tell which way the wind usually comes from. There's a name for that. I have to look that up. Why, that's so pretty.
That is beautiful.
High mountain lakes.
And it's green,
Yeah.
the water.
Summit Creek.
The fog cleared north of White Pass, and the high alpine country and lakes were spectacular.
Hello. Two. Sioux Lake, Montana. This is our campsite. Just about maybe 5 miles north of the BC Yukon border. A few miles short of Carcross, Yukon. This might have been an old gravel pit. Kind of looks like it could have been. Still very pretty. Carcross is currently the end of the line for the old White Pass and Yukon Railroad, still in use today, transporting passengers from Skagway. Between 1900 and 1982, trains ran all the way to Whitehorse, hauling both freight and passengers. Matthew Watson General Store is the oldest operating store in the Yukon, built in 1898. Carcross was also a good spot to fill up on water.
Then we stumbled across Carcross Desert, a fascinating area of sand dunes created by the last glacier.
We're
in the desert.
And this is, what day is this?
August 15th.
And that's 30 years.
2 days.
30-year anniversary. And we're in the desert. How
Yeah,
about that?
in the desert in the Yukon.
In the Yukon. Yep. and we had to celebrate our anniversary by staying in a place with a real bed, a hot shower, a pizza, and a bottle of wine by the river, watching eagles and otters.
That's where we'll end this time. Join us next time for another video behind the scenes of converting our van into a camper.
If you were intrigued when we were talking about polar bears, check this out. A few years ago, we took a long train ride from Winnipeg over the permafrost to Churchill, Manitoba on Hudson Bay. Great Bear Foundation offers a couple of 5-day field courses each year around Halloween where you can learn about polar bears and their environment as they pass through this area every year, waiting for the ice to form on Hudson Bay where they spend the winter hunting seals.
We learned about polar bear ecology, conservation, and behavior with lessons on photography, the Arctic, and northern cultures. In addition to general polar bear ecology, this course focuses on how humans and polar bears coexist. We saw bears, foxes, eagles, and a ton of other wildlife, all the while lodging at the beautiful Arctic Studies Research Center. You can get college credit for this through the University of Montana, but you don't need to be a student to go on the trip. If you're really lucky, you can see the bears do some crazy things. You can find contact information in the notes below.